One of the games that I've been really anticipating since I've pretty much started this channel is Hellblade 2 for the Xbox Series consoles. And part of the reason for that is just looking at the trailers and the visuals and the world that Ninja Theory has crafted had me really excited to play something that was finally going to capitalize on the series console's hardware. And that's something that I felt like a lot of games haven't really done up until this point. And the game finally came out this week, and I've spent the past couple of days playing through it and experiencing this world for myself. And in this video, I'm going to go over what I really like about it and discuss if I think it's lived up to the hype that Ninja Theory's been promising throughout its development cycle. So let's take a look. I'll be honest in that I didn't actually play the first Hellblade game. I heard a lot of great things about it, a lot of positive things about it. Unfortunately, it just wasn't a game that I really got around to actually delving into. However, I went into Hellblade 2, and I recommend you do the same if you're in the same position as me, and I watched the recap video to kind of understand the whole lore and the storyline and the story threads of Hellblade and how they tie into Hellblade 2. Now, actually getting into the game itself, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. In other words, I'd seen some gameplay trailers, I'd seen some gameplay footage of the previous Hellblade, and I wasn't entirely sure if this was a hack and slash game or really what to expect. And I think that kind of boosted the appeal to the game for me, because when I finally have gotten to sit down and really play it, I'm really enamored with how well the game moves between being quite linear to action-packed and story-driven. And in a lot of ways, the game itself feels almost like an interactive movie. And for some people that might not feel like something they want out of a video game, but for me, I'm personally a fan of that format. And what I mean is, I was a fan of games like The Order on PS4. I'm not sure how many of you played that, which I think, by the way, was quite underrated. But in that game, it felt quite similar to how Hellblade 2 is formatted, where you have a bit of walking, you have some deep presentation slash cutscenes, and then you get into combat. And really that seems to be the straightforward format of Hellblade 2. There's also, of course, puzzles that are thrown in to kind of flesh out the game itself, and those encourage a bit of exploration, which I do like. And of course, the major thing that you'll notice playing this, to me, so far in this generation, I would argue this is one of the best looking games that I've ever played, and some of it, to me, just looks so good. And I think that's what also makes this story slash walking slash puzzle slash combat driven game feel so unique, and in a lot of ways feel really cinematic. Now, one thing I also want to touch on is I was encouraged to play this game using headphones, so I use my Xbox wireless headphones, and I really want to highlight that the sound design so far in this game is next to none. In my opinion, just some of the little touches and the finesses that they've done with the audio are absolutely incredible. And I understand that Senua, she's suffering from mental health issues, and the voices that you hear scattering around and the way they come in and out as you're exploring the environments, to me is incredibly well done, and in a lot of ways even disorienting. I haven't really played a game that's played with the sound design like this since Silent Hill 2. And what I mean is, you'll hear weird noises or weird things coming from places where they don't actually exist, and it really plays well into hashing out or fleshing out Senua's psyche, which I think is brilliant as far as this game's concerned. I also really like a lot of the different musical elements and atmospheric elements that pop in and out, especially during combat. The way the music actually plays a part in the combat, to me, makes it almost feel rhythmic in a really unique and good way. What they kill, don't let them kill you. And leading into that as well, I want to discuss the combat itself. At first, I was a little thrown off. I wasn't quite sure what I thought about the combat, but as I've gotten further into Hellblade 2, I really like what the developers have done. And I know one of the criticisms I've kind of seen lodged against this is that the combat's almost too cinematic and almost feels too scripted, but I'm not sure I completely agree. I love how fluid it seems and how it almost feels like you're watching a movie. It doesn't feel like you're just jamming a bunch of buttons and your character's just wildly doing something like a lot of games are designed around. And this game, it feels very unique. It feels very cinematic. And I also like that the developers made the choice of only allowing one-on-one combat. So when you get into combat, you're only fighting one person, and the game does a really good job when there are multiple enemies, that after you've killed one, another one might pull you in and then you take them on one-on-one as well. And I thought that was a unique format for combat compared to a lot of games where you're frequently just jamming a bunch of buttons trying not to get hit against mobs of enemies. I thought it made the combat feel more intimate, but I also thought it made it feel, I don't want to necessarily say cinematic, but it made it feel a lot more impactful, and it felt like you were actively contributing to like a really cool combat scene in a high-level movie. So far I'm about 3 hours in. As I understand, this is a relatively short game, so I'm going to continue playing through this over the weekend and the coming week as well. But as it stands, I'm completely blown away so far. Yes, the game has a lot of linear elements, and yes, it doesn't really allow much in the way of deep exploration, but the production values and the cinematics and the audio and of course the visuals, they make this game truly unique in a lot of ways, and I really appreciate what Ninja Theory has done. And I look forward to continuing through this game and getting deeper into the story and really experiencing the full game as a whole. And I think if you have Game Pass or you want to purchase this game, which it's also, as I understand, released at like $50 Canadian, so it's a little cheaper than most AAA games, I heavily recommend picking this up. And I heavily recommend getting into this game and really experiencing what the Xbox hardware can seriously offer, and also what Ninja Theory was able to do with that hardware in telling this story.